When people have that stress response attenuated, then all their creativity starts to flow. And so you then can get in touch with your creative side. You aren't hampered by stress, and you don't carry that stress into the future, because research shows that like unresolved childhood stress results in greater levels of cancer, heart disease, hepatitis, diabetes, all kinds of physical ailments after the age of 50. But if you go and heal your childhood trauma, then you aren't carrying that burden, which dramatically affects your life. I did one study and we looked at cortisol in this large scale, triple blind, randomized controlled trial. And we found that EFT dropped anxiety and depression in 1 hour more than an hour of talk therapy and more than an hour of rest, more than twice as much actually as talk therapy. So you throw in the tapping, it has a much bigger effect, and cortisol plunged in that hour.
Welcome to Letting Go and the Greatest Secret, where we explore the end of your suffering and the beginning of lasting happiness. I'm Hale Dwoskin, and today I'll be talking with Dawson Church. Dawson Church is an award-winning science writer with 3 best-selling books: The Genie in Your Genes, Mind to Matter, and Bliss Brain. He has conducted dozens of clinical trials and founded the National Institute for Integrated Healthcare to study and implement promising evidence-based psychological and medical techniques. Its largest program, the Veterans Stress Project, has offered free treatment to over 20,000 veterans with PTSD. So, welcome, Dawson. It's a thrill to have you here. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of fun discussing all the ways that what you do and what I do are very much aligned, and you have some amazing gifts to share with the world. So let's start out by just telling everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I love sharing because, like most of us, what we do now is a result of our origin, our past, our story, our experiences. And I really came into science and came into psychology and came into personal growth from the standpoint that a lot of people in coaching and therapy do, which is being really miserable. Like, if you go poll therapists, Hale, you find that half of them half of them are miserable already still, and they virtually all were miserable to begin with, which is why they chose psychology as a profession. And so at 15, 12, 13, I was just one of those miserable kids, just depressed, anxious, suicidal, had a pretty rocky upbringing. And so I figured I had to do something to fix myself. In fact, when I was 15 years old, I remember walking past a full-length mirror and looking at myself, bell-bottom trousers and a book bag slung over my shoulder and hair down to here. And I looked into my own eyes, Hale, and I said to my self-talk was, that's the saddest face I've ever seen. And I realized, man, you're so messed up. You got to do something to fix yourself. So I went and ran away from home, joined an ashram, joined a spiritual community, spent years there. Didn't help very much. I did meditate and I did learn the world's great perennial philosophies, Krishnamurti, Alan Watts, all those people. But then I thought, well, spirituality isn't moving the needle very much for me. So try psychology. So I signed up for correspondence courses and I began to get into psychology and personal growth. And I found I made progress. But when I was 45 years old, I had a moment of real crisis one year. And I made the resolution to meditate every single day. I'd been a very spotty meditator before that, but that one moment I realized, in that moment of crisis at 45 years old, I needed to meditate every single day and make that commitment. And I did. And it was hard because I had to get up early in the morning, even earlier than I wanted to get up. But I did, and began to do it every single day. And within just a few months, I learned energy therapies. I found that my whole world, money world, my relationship with my children, my love life, my profession, everything began to shift in positive ways. And then I got into energy therapies, especially tapping. And I looked at them and realized that I was seeing change of an order of magnitude greater than I'd seen before, especially when therapists began telling me, hey, I just worked with a soldier that got back from Iraq or Afghanistan, or I just worked with a Vietnam veteran, and I did 5 sessions and their PTSD was gone. So I realized that I needed to get much more deeply involved in promoting those therapies and studying them. So I then began to do simple research, eventually randomized controlled trials, eventually biological research on these new energy therapies. And they were just amazing. I applied them to myself and then began to write popular books about them. I wrote The Genie in Your Genes in the early 2000s about the link between epigenetics and how our thoughts and consciousness, shifts in emotion especially, literally are triggering a cascade of gene expression. And it's been wonderful to live like the last 20 years as a happy person rather than the first 20, which were pretty miserable and depressed. So
yeah, that's always nice, isn't it?
it is. I've had both experiences. This one is better.
Yes, yes. It is certainly better to be happy.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about your latest book, The Bliss Brain?
Yes, Bliss Brain is my
So,
newest book because I wrote that book out of surprise because in 2017 my wife and I were really blindsided by a wildfire, and I'd written my early book Mind to Matter. It hadn't come out yet, but I had the book like in the cloud, and then we had this just sudden overnight catastrophe where my wife woke me up at 12:45 a.m. I looked at the clock. It was flashing 12:45. I looked out the window. I saw a glow on the horizon, ran outside, and this wildfire was just sweeping toward our house. And so we just had time to grab our car keys and throw in some clothes and drive out as all the trees were catching fire above our heads as we drove out of there. And so we made a narrow escape. We wound up then a couple of days later, we'd driven a long way away to try and escape several cascading wildfires. And someone texted us a photograph of where our house had been. And there was a concrete slab and a chimney and then just ash. Same thing with our office. Our office had burned down. Our warehouse had burned down. Everything had burned down in the fire. And we suddenly found ourselves in this turmoil of literally losing everything we had except our car and our cell phones. And so we definitely had start seriously applying meditation, tapping, all the things we learned. But in fact, I was due, like the week of the fire, I was due to go teach a trauma conference in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And so I thought, a couple of days after the fire, my wife was more or less okay. And I thought, I'll just go teach the trauma conference. So a week after the fire, less than a week, there I was standing up giving a keynote speech. And I've been scheduled to speak on trauma because I've worked with over 20,000 veterans through our nonprofit who have PTSD. And so I've done a lot of work on this. I've done 6 studies on psychological trauma in veterans. And so I had been planning to do this for a year. And after the fire, I thought, I'm just going to go there and do it anyway. But it was kind of funny being there in addressing a psychology conference a week after the fire. Everyone knew I'd lost everything. And 200 pairs of eyeballs as all these psychologists are looking me up and down and thinking, how traumatized is this guy?
Applying all their scales and everything else, right.
Yeah. Checking that. So that was a really shattering experience. And then in the year after that, I found myself meditating every day, which I had been doing then for 20 years. And I found myself even having even more profound meditations and hitting these heights of joy that I just hadn't even believed were possible. So I began to do a little bit of looking at things like anandamide, the bliss molecule, and what happens when you raise serotonin and dopamine, these pleasure molecules, oxytocin, beta endorphin, and they are really potent and they make you feel super hyper good. And so I found myself there after the fire. And I wrote that book, Bliss Brain, in the year after the fire, as I was dealing with the aftermath of, everything burning down. Our business went under. All kinds of things happened that year that were hard to deal with on the outer level. But I realized that I wrote one post for the Huffington Post, one blog post. And I said I used an image from the fire, and when the office burned down, there was one thing in the office that survived, and it was a statue, a ceramic statue of the Buddha, about this high, and had been stuck in the back of a storage closet and had papers piled on top of it for maybe 10 years. Finally, the office burns down, and the only thing left standing there in the ashes is the Buddha. So I wrote this post for the Huffington Post about how compassion can't burn, and love can't burn, and resilience can't burn, and gratitude can't burn. And if you've had these things in your neural network and your experience, if they're there in your life, you can lose everything, and yet the important things are still there. So that was the big lesson to me, is that the things that matter are intangible, and you can lose everything and still feel that sense of oneness with what I call in my books non-local mind. You're up there in the space in meditation in which you're simply one with the all that is. And when you come back down to local self and local reality, you're bringing with you that sense of well-being and absolute love that is in that place of non-local mind. And so you have a fundamental sense of wellness that's independent even of fire and destruction in your life.
Well, that's fabulous. Not the fire part, but again, it was transformative too. So actually, let's just get right into tapping. As you know, I do something called the Sedona method,
Yes.
and you do something that is incredibly complementary to that. And so many people who do the Sedona method tell me that tapping helps, and I'm sure you've heard over the
Yes.
decades how complementary the Sedona method is to tapping. So for those people who are listening to this who don't know what it is, can you describe it, and can we take people through a little bit of a taste or experience of it?
Yeah. And so therapists who've been trained in something like the Sedona method, or coaches who've been trained in the Sedona method or other methods of psychotherapy or coaching, find that EFT layers into those really well. And it is especially useful when you hit a block. And so when you find yourself stuck and you aren't making progress, there's something going on there that is often subconscious, might be energetic, and that's where tapping EFT is really effective. And so what we've done over the years is initially done a lot of research on the phenomenology about this, what's happening in people's experience about this. And we found that when we measure levels of anxiety, depression, phobias, PTSD, and we use just common instruments like the Beck Anxiety Inventory and the PTSD checklist that the VA uses, and we then administer those questionnaires, and then we give them, usually, for depression, it's going to be 3-5 sessions. PTSD, at least, we recommend at least 5 sessions. We prefer 10 sessions for PTSD. Complex PTSD might take more than 10 sessions. And so we then give them that treatment routine with EFT. We then measure their levels of symptoms again, and usually they drop dramatically. Like people with PTSD drop back into the normal range after that 6 or 10 sessions of EFT. So we first were measuring what was going on in terms of mood and psychological symptoms after tapping, and then we began to use other techniques like gene assays and hormone tests, measuring hormone before and after, immune system function before and after, heart rate variability. Eventually, we did EEG studies and MRI studies. And so what we found is that this very simple method, just stimulating acupuncture points, which of course has been done for thousands of years in different cultures, there's evidence showing that acupuncture points were known in Europe at least 6,000 years ago. And we know they were known in China and Japan and India and the East, but it's pretty new to discover that they were also understood in Europe as being therapeutic. And so for a long time, people have just known that if you stimulate these points on the surface of the skin, either with a needle or with some other kind of implement, or simply tapping on them, or like in Japan with shiatsu massage, pressure on them on these points, that people feel better. And so we began doing that initially. It caught on in the 70s in the US, and there was more and more acupressure. And then a few pioneering chiropractors and psychiatrists said, I wonder if this will work for phobias and for anxiety, and began to apply it there, and they thought it did work. And it's really interesting to watch people shift. Like one young man that I worked with at Omega Institute, I was teaching there, and he had done several tours in Iraq, and he had high level PTSD. And I'm picking up a bottle right now, and in that interview, when I was talking to him at Omega in a beautiful physical space, somebody picked up a water bottle and did this. And this young man just pretty much was ready to dive under the table with fear, just hearing a water bottle crackle. And that's what PTSD does. In fact, the longer you have PTSD, the more it rewires your brain for stress, and the bigger levels of symptoms people usually get. So I'd work with people like that soldier, and then you tap with him, and then literally 30 minutes later, I say to the person in the room, would you mind picking up your water bottle and doing this again? And he has no reaction whatsoever. He's down to a 0 out of 10, from a 10 out of 10 in terms of fear. So you work with people, and you watch these layers of traumatic stress just drop off them, and it doesn't take long. And so that's the personal experience of it, and then the symptom measurement of it, really, really effective. But what EFT does is, if you look at people hooked up to an EEG, when they recall a fear memory. So maybe they're thinking about abuse as a child, or they're thinking about a car crash or a divorce, or about the Great Recession. And what you see in their brain is that the fear centers, the hippocampus, the amygdala, all of those parts of the limbic system get highly activated, and they, like on an MRI, they glow red. I mean, they're highly activated when people think about that fear memory, like that young soldier was thinking about small arms fire. And so when we tap with them, stimulate these acupuncture points by tapping on them, you watch that part of the brain, the limbic system and the emotional core, just calm down. It's just amazing. It doesn't take 10 minutes. It takes just a few seconds, and suddenly it deactivates that. So the thinking about the bomb blast, the thinking about the car crash, and the tapping and the emotional brain just calms down, because it's getting the signal of soothing and energy balancing from the acupressure points. So that's just very briefly what EFT is and how it works.
All right, so give us a demonstration so people can start to apply it. And by the way, remember, we're recording video, which will be on YouTube, but this is also mostly a podcast. So you'll have to describe where you're tapping. When
Okay,
you're tapping.
I'll do
Don't assume people can see it.
Yeah, I was assuming that's why I said I was crackling a water bottle as well as showing you the water bottle for those of us who can see it. So yeah, I'll describe where the points are. And so there are acupuncture meridians that run up and down in our body. There are about 300 points, and then a few of them are used therapeutically in EFT. And so the way you can test EFT very quickly yourself is you have to first start with a memory of something that has a high level of emotion for you, and that's recent. We don't let people go into childhood memories or potentially re-traumatizing memories early on. We recommend that be done with a therapist. But pick something from 2 weeks ago, a week ago, recent thing, and don't pick something from the news, because there's a lot of really graphic images there right now. So pick something from your own life that annoyed you maybe from a week or two ago. And again, not something that's a 10 out of 10. Again, work on those things with a therapist. Don't pick a format like this where we can't help you if you get emotionally flooded. So pick something manageable. That's maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10, and that is recent, not from your childhood, and not a 10 out of 10. So, Hale, I said that 3 times now. Hopefully people will. There's always somebody pick something from their childhood and a 10 out of 10. So,
I obviously can't control that. So
I can't
just
control
go for
that. No. So you've got now your event, and just give it a number from 0 to 10, and give it a very brief name. Like if it was a movie, say for example, somebody cut in front of you in line, and that really annoyed you, so you're 5 out of 10, and the name of the movie is They Cut in Line. So you've now got a title, and you've now got um, a number. Give it even briefer title if you want to. Just line. That's a long enough name for you to remember and to reactivate memory those memory circuits in your brain. And Hale, I want to make you a guinea pig and have you pick one too. So no more than
Sure.
2 weeks ago, mildly annoying.
Okay.
And what's the name of your event?
The discussion.
The discussion. Okay. So that's a neutral event. And, when we work with veterans, often they don't want to disclose what it is they're working on because it can be just
Oh,
deeply
yeah, I'm sure. It
triggering.
could be
So,
horrific. Yeah.
yeah, we just get a neutral title from them, and the discussion is a good one. And then as you tune into your body, what's your number?
Well, that's kind of hard because even though it's relatively recent, there's not much charge left because charge doesn't usually stick here, but it came up, so I'm sure there's something. So I'll give it a 2.
Give it a 2. Well, just tune into that 2. Where is the 2 in your body?
Let's see. At the back of my head and in my stomach.
Okay. If you had to pick one of those 2 spots, back of the head and the stomach, which is the most intense?
Probably the back of my head.
Back of your head. Okay. And really let yourself feel that sensation in the back of your head, Hale, and see if it's lit 2, or as you tune into it and become mindful of it, is it changing?
It's dissolving. I might not be very good.
So it's still about a 2 or
Now it's about a 0.5.
0.5. Yeah, you're a terrible client. Okay, take something from your childhood, make it a 10. Not really. Yeah, but just think of the most annoying person in your life. Write down the most annoying thing they say.
Okay.
Okay, and think of that thing they say. Think of those words.
All right.
And what's your number now?
Oh God, it only went up to a 1. And it just dissolved.
Looks like we're heading for complete failure here, Hal. Yeah, we do enough healing, and it's like when after a while, when you find something, it's like, oh, goody, I found something to tap on. I found something to work on.
Right. Hey, can we do this? Is there another way can you just do this? I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just that I think I'm not going to make a good person for this, because anytime what happens for me is whenever I focus on anything that even a few moments ago had any kind of stress or tension or anxiety or whatever, because even those descriptors are often not even accurate anymore. As soon as there's a focusing on it, it dissolves. So something we do, which I'm sure you do too, you can't always work one-on-one if you're in front of a whole group. Sometimes you take do you ever take the whole group through something?
Yes.
Can we do it that way? Because again, there's going to be thousands of people listening to this. So can we do this as more of a process you're going to do with a whole group and take all of us through it at the same time? I was hoping we could do it together, but
so far you're too relaxed, you're too chill, you're too mellow.
I apologize again.
No, I will do it, and I'll use the phrasing and the wording I would for a group and do it generally.
Perfect.
But I want you to have at least something. I mean, I'll take a half if that's the best you got. But anything that was a 3 or a 4 or a 5 in the last couple of weeks.
A 3 or a 4 or a 5. Not really.
Okay, go back a month.
Should I do a longer distance, a longer time?
Yeah, as long as like right now, Hale, you're feeling some physical signal from your body saying that this isn't quite resolved, whatever it might be. And even pick one you've worked on with the Sedona method or other kinds of methods, because usually when we start doing energy work, we'll find that like we'll have therapists who say, oh, I worked on that a lot. And then we get into the energy level and they find there's still some residue there
Oh,
to work
yes, of
on.
course, of course. It's important to integrate all levels. Okay, I can think of something. Yeah.
Okay, so give me the name, just a 1 or 2 word name of that little scene.
One or two. Let's see. The bed.
The bed.
Yeah.
Okay, the bed. Okay. And then what's your number on that memory?
Uh, Probably a two.
2. Okay. Okay. So you've got your name, you've got your number. And for everyone listening or watching, just go ahead and find your event, again, a recent event, and get your number. And you can get a number usually by just tuning into your body and seeing where you feel it, like Hale felt it in his gut, in the back of his head, and then get a number 0 to 10 because we want you to have that number. It's important you have that number before and after, so you can see if the tapping and the energy work is really effective for you. So we measure it before and after. So go ahead and get your number, get your event, and then write those two things down. Again, it's important because in our research, people's numbers often fall so quickly, their left brain has a hard time recognizing that they have shifted so fast. So we have people write that down. So write it down on a piece of paper, on your device, just make sure you have it written down somewhere. And then we'll just simply apply pressure to each of these key acupuncture meridian points and then see what shifts for you. So start by tapping on the side of your hand right below the joint that anchors your little finger with the fingertips of the other hand. So again, the side of your hand right below the joint that anchors your little finger. That's your small intestine meridian. Keep your eyes open as you tap and really focus intently on that event. And while you're focused there, notice that you're breathing. Notice you're safe right this very moment. And just accept the fact that you are who you are right now. You're in the here and now, and you're breathing and you're safe. So, however bad that event was, you got through it and you're safe now. But think about the event. Focus on the event as you tap. Now tap on top of your head, just flat hand on the very top of your head. That's your governing meridian. Really tune into the event. So, Hale, you're focusing on the bed. We're all focusing on that thing that bothered us. And we're breathing. And we made it through. We're safe now. Now tap where your eyebrow meets the bridge of your nose with 2 fingers. Keep your eyes open. Focus on the event. All the details of the event. What did you see? What did you hear? Taste, touch, smell. Really focus on the detail of the event while you tap. This is your bladder meridian. Now tap on the side of your eyes, either both sides or one side. Keep breathing. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed and really focus on that event. In psychology, we call this exposure. You're really keeping your attention focused, exposed to the event while you tap. Now tap under the pupil of your eyes. Again, focus on the event, light up all those neurons that carry the signals of that memory. Focus on the details, what you saw, heard, smelled, touched, tasted during the event. Keep breathing, keep your shoulders relaxed. Notice you're safe right now. Tap under your nose. Again, focusing on the event. Tap on your chin. Keep breathing, keep your eyes open. Keep your attention on the event. All the details of the event. Tap where your collarbone meets your breastbone, right under your collarbone. Notice your breathing. Recall the details. What was the worst detail of the event? Was it something you tasted, touched, smelled, heard, saw? Think of the very worst detail of the event while you tap here. This is the kidney meridian. Notice you're safe. Notice you're breathing. And that bad event already happened. You're now focusing on the worst part of that event. Then cross your arms, tap under your arms. That's your spleen meridian. Just balancing the energies there while you focus on the event, and notice you're safe. You made it through. Tap one more time on the side of your hand, focusing on both the event and the current safety of where you are and that detail of the event. Notice your breathing. Keep your eyes open. Then stop tapping, relax, and think back to the event and get a new number. You've now balanced all the meridians of your body by tapping. If we had a galvanometer, I'd be measuring your skin conductance in those points. It would be changing. If we had an EEG hooked up to your occipital lobe in your brain, we would see a very different signature now as you think about the event. We'd see your emotional brain having calmed down, and that's reflected in your number. So, like, Hale, think about the bed, and what's your new number?
0.
0, yeah. And usually people will drop several points when they do this, not always to a 0. For those of you who haven't dropped to a 0, let's just add one other little technique that generates a lot of slow brain waves, which again are characteristic of safety in your brain. So tap on the groove between the bones that anchor your little finger and your ring finger on
By
the
the way,
back
does
of
it
your
matter
hand.
which hand?
No, either hand.
Okay.
So tap now on the groove, that's your triple warmer meridian, between the bones that anchor your knuckles of the ring finger and little finger. Tap there with 3 or 4 fingers. And then this generates a lot of slow waves, which we have when we sleep and we work out problems symbolically in dreams. So we move our eyes like we do in rapid eye movement sleep. And just try moving your eyes, first of all, to look all the way down without moving your head. So you keep your head steady, but look all the way down. Now look all the way to your left. Now look all the way up without moving your head, eyes only. Look all the way to the right. Look all the way down again. Now we'll do it the other way, other direction. So look all the way to your right again, while tapping, while breathing, focusing on the event. Look all the way up, keeping your head steady. Look all the way to the left. Look all the way up again at the ceiling or the highest point you can possibly move your eyes to. Then stop tapping and relax. And just feel your body. Remember, you're safe. And if you weren't down to a 0, you should have gone down at least a few more points. And then often people don't go down to a 0 at first. Within a few minutes, their energy system settles back down and they'll drop the rest of the way down. And we're doing this with people who have issues. I mean, they may have problems at work, problems in their relationships, problems with money, but we've done this with victims of the Parkland, Florida school shootings. We've done this with victims of the Newtown, Connecticut school shootings. We're doing it with victims of the Uvalde, Texas school shootings. We've done it with Rwandan refugees who escaped the Holocaust in Rwanda in 1994. We've done it with people who were in Hurricane Katrina. We have teams, volunteer teams at various disasters that go and help people afterwards and work with the Red Cross or Red Crescent. So this has been shown effective even in countries where people have very, very few resources. We all have the same energy systems and the same
Right.
basic anatomy.
It's true.
And so it can help us all to shed stress and to release all that old imprinting from trauma.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Again, even though I wasn't a good subject, I still could feel that the tapping on the points still opens and relaxes the energetic flow in the body mind. So
Yes.
even though I don't have a lot of trauma or anything like that I carry around with me, it still was beneficial. Seems like this would be something beneficial to do even if you didn't have an issue, isn't it?
It is. It can just settle you and balance you. It also can work on unconscious levels. So I know when I wake up in the morning, I usually do some tapping just to release any residue from dreams, like you may have been working out stressful events in your life symbolically in dreams, and that tapping will help you get ready for meditation, get ready for your day. And so whatever you need stress relief, even if that's just a feeling, an uneasy feeling, not attached to a memory, EFT can help you balance.
That's great. That's wonderful.
It's simple too. It's 2 minutes and you feel better.
Yes, definitely. And I'm a firm proponent of not only EFT, what you do, but acupuncture in general. I have a acupuncturist I go to occasionally here where I live, and I've done that off and on my whole life. And I studied shiatsu when I was 18.
Okay.
So I was exposed to these things. Let's see, 18, 16, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was impressed from the very beginning.
Yeah, well, what's been so surprising, Hale, has been the scale of the effect of adding acupressure to various kinds of psychotherapy. Like exposure is a really well-known method, and the cognitive framing we're giving this is we're saying, I'm safe now. So you're placing that traumatic event when you definitely were not safe into a reframe of safety. And reframing comes from cognitive therapies. So we're bringing in bits and pieces of other therapies. There's a lot more to EFT than what it showed you. That was a very basic demonstration, but that's why I say you layer it into other forms of therapy, and it very rapidly reduces the stress response. And then when people have that stress response attenuated, then all their creativity starts to flow. And so you then can get in touch with your creative side. You aren't hampered by stress, and you don't carry that stress into the future, because research shows that like unresolved childhood stress results in greater levels of cancer, heart disease, hepatitis, diabetes, all kinds of physical ailments after the age of 50. But if you go and heal your childhood trauma, then you aren't carrying that burden, which dramatically affects your life. I did one study and we looked at cortisol in this large-scale, triple-blind, randomized controlled trial, and we found that EFT dropped anxiety and depression in 1 hour more than an hour of talk therapy and more than an hour of rest, more than twice as much actually as talk therapy. So you throw in the tapping, it has a much bigger effect, and cortisol plunged in that hour. Another study I did looked at cortisol over the course of a week. And in 1 week, there was a dramatic drop, 37% drop in cortisol and a 113% rise in immune markers. So when cortisol goes down, when stress goes down, your body repurposes all those molecules for really useful things like building immunity. And so we were just amazed to look at that result and see that immune function rose by over 100%, 113% in that study. So we are doing ourselves a huge favor to add this into whatever else we're doing. It's not to say you don't do all the other things you're doing for self-care as well. Do all of those. I mean, you have a great doctor, have a great therapist, use acupuncture, alternative medicine, nutrition. Those things are powerful, and you need all those as well. But throw in the stress reduction effects of tapping.
Great. Good suggestion. So, what's the best way for someone to contact this work?
Now, there are two things that you can get at my website. One is the EFT mini manual, and over 3 million people have downloaded the mini manual over the last 10 years. So a lot of people have downloaded that mini manual. It's just great. It's very simple, about 60 pages, and it'll show you how to do EFT. But also, after we did that immunity trial, we created a special meditation that brings in tapping and other kinds of activities, like the quick coherence technique from HeartMath, biofeedback, neurofeedback, visualization. And again, that style of meditation we showed in another study also raises immunity. So on my website, tapping gift, just the word tapping, just like regular tapping, gift.com, you get both the mini manual and the immunity meditation in one location, and also access to our practitioners. We have thousands of certified practitioners. We have an app called Stress Solution where you can work with the practitioner yourself. We have a lot of self-help tools, tons of free stuff at tappinggift.com. And so we really want to encourage people to go there, use the app, have a practitioner on call, and then just learn these simple self-help routines to help them set up a good meditation practice in the morning, get effective help, and then tap whenever they're stressed.
Perfect. Well, thank you. It's been fun. I'm glad you exposed everyone to tapping. I think it's wonderful.
It's fun. And, when you start to do these things, Hale, what you discover is that your life can be just so much better. And like after the fire, when I was hitting those spaces in meditation and I wrote the book Bliss Brain, you are changing so many things about your body. You're changing your cortisol levels. You're changing gene expression. There have been several studies of gene expression with EFT, and we literally see the genes that code for stress biochemistry dialing down. Those that code for immunity are dialing up. And so now you're doing these simple techniques, and you're literally having an effect on your body. Ultimately, you're having an effect on your longevity. So it's just worth playing around with these wonderful techniques. We have them now, and we can apply them in any situation that stresses us out. We can go and do it proactively and work on our past stressors and our childhood trauma. Again, with the help of the therapist, we want to make sure we don't go into that territory by ourselves. But you can have just so much better quality of life if you're unlocking all your potential by letting go of your stress and then letting the self that you were meant to have shine. So I love doing this. It's a real pleasure. And thank you so much for sharing this with the Sedona Method community.
Oh, thank you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dawson Church. You can learn more about Dawson and receive a free EFT mini manual at dawsongift.com. That's DAWSONGIFT.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you have immediate access to future episodes. Please give us a 5-star rating and share it with the people you care about. If you'd like to learn more about my work, my mentor Lester Levinson's work, and the Sedona Method, please visit www.sedona.com. As you explore our site, you learn the key to lasting happiness, success, peace, and emotional well-being. We have books, courses, events, and plenty of free material to explore. Again, go to sedona.com. That's sedona.com. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you in the next episode of Letting Go and the Greatest Secret.